This is The Baseline, discussing the hot button topics of the NBA.
Welcome, everybody. You're tuned to The Baseline. Kyrie, Warren Shaw, discussing the hot button topics of the NBA. The final ep for 2017. We are bringing in 2018 like no other. Good things abound. The NBA is fully grounded with a lot of exciting basketball being played. As always, man, let me go ahead and roll out the red carpet to my right-hand man, 50 grand, NBA aficionado, www.shawsports.net, Big Kahuna PNC. My brother from another mother, Mr. Warren Shaw, repping out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Holla back at me, Mr. Shaw. The word around is that I was all right, man. I held my own when my PNC wasn't with me when I did the last ep, brother.
Yeah, as always, shout out to you, dude, for doing a great job holding it down as you did. Christmas games were fun, man. They were fun, and you did a great job giving our fans, listeners, a preview of that. But it's great to be back. Last edition, as you alluded to 2017. Salute to all the fans of the NBA Baseline. Amazing show that I think is going to be a little bit of fun, a little deviation from our norm that we can only do because of the time of year, man. But should be a good time.
Yeah, man. Listen, it's 2018. Everyone's getting ready, getting the libations set up. They got the party favors going. But there's a lot of stuff happening, man, in the NBA. We had a great slate of games a week ago with the Christmas Day games. And as the NBA continues to move forward and tread a lot of storylines that are now, emerging as we're getting closer to that point. NBA All-Star Weekend is the next big event. You got the trade deadline and following up, and then it's a rat race. But within that sect, we often talk about how there's always great teams that separate themselves from the pack, and it's pretty easy to see who's in and who's practically out. If you look at the Eastern Conference, Shaw, and again, man, this is exactly why we're excited about 2018. There are several teams in the East that believe that they have an opportunity to be a part of that Eastern Conference playoff picture. And this is what we're talking about, man. It's like we're getting to that point. From the last few years, we've been talking about how the competitive balance is just so leaned over to the Cavs. Now we're talking about competitive balance about a plethora of teams, if they give themselves a shot to get in, that they may size themselves up and knock off, one of the perennial favorites out there in the East. And we love seeing that because the Eastern Conference has been so disenfranchised as far as exciting basketball being played throughout an NBA season.
Yeah, we've been discussing it on our show throughout the entire regular season. And, especially within the Atlantic Division in that Eastern Conference, all those teams more or less being competitive. Brooklyn obviously on a little bit of a slider right now. But again, more competitive than most people would have thought they would have been to begin the year. Then again, even in the Central Division as well, too. So I feel like, yeah, you're right 100% that the Eastern Conference has definitely acquitted itself pretty well this 2017-2018 NBA season thus far. And we just hope that they have a strong finish and can make everything as exciting as it has been the first couple months here.
Definitely. So great show on board. We love trying to do new things, kind of pave the way a little bit and bring a little nuance, bring a little flavor, to our swag a little bit. So for this show, man, we want to end things right, give people a little bit to kind of fall back on, or what was good, what was bad about 2017. And then we do our traditional thing, man. We need to be resolute. We need to start setting standards, to prepare ourselves for the 2018 campaign. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We are going to give you our New Year's resolutions from both the East and Western conferences. So great show on tap. Once again, get at my man Shaw at Shaw Sports NBA, or get at me at GameFace Lee. The show's Twitter handle at NBA Baseline. Available on all the major platforms. You know them because if you were listening to our show, you actually have access to them. But in case you don't, iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Microsoft TuneIn, iHeartRadio, Spotify. We're on all of them. So be sure to download any of those platforms. Available exclusively through the Almighty Ballers Network. When you need the NBA 24/7 in your earlobe, you get to the Almighty Ballers Network. The Baseline NBA podcast is featured there exclusively. You can also find us on the 16 Wins a Ring website, one of the premier websites that gives you great NBA content, storylines. We are featured there. And then we are also featured on Dash Radio, one of the up-and-coming online radio sites that people are listening to. The NBA Baseline podcast is on there exclusively as well, too. You can also check out the new feature, Potable, new platform. A lot of people have been flocking to that, and we are among the premier NBA podcasts that discusses the NBA exclusively. So be sure to download that if you don't have access to that as well. You know how we do, and you know how we roll. It's time now for the breakdown. Time to break it
I
down.
break it down to the bone gristle.
Time now for the breakdown. Cal Lee Warrenshaw of the Baseline NBA podcast. And for the breakdown, the main topic of conversation for us is going to be New Year's resolutions for 2018. What we want to see, what we are expecting in both the Eastern and Western conferences, respectively. But before we do that, man, we'd be remiss if we didn't go back in time and talk about this 2017 year. An amazing year, Shaw. I mean, when you kind of think about it, on all aspects of it. You know, most teams, more sports genres get stuck on one end of the spectrum. If something doesn't happen in the off season, it really doesn't lend to the excitement for the regular season. And then you got to warm yourself up to the idea that there's something good that's going to happen when the playoffs hit. But the NBA, every single year, Shaw, has started to kind of put themselves in that realm of conversation where we almost have to treat this like TMZ, man. Like, we need people on the ground with their ears to the ground all the time because of all the craziness that's happening, not just on the basketball court, but off the basketball court, not just during the regular season, but also in the off season as well, too. And there's so many great things that took place in 2017 that really kind of lent to the excitement about us looking forward to what was going to happen for 2018.
I think with us, we're not the typical podcast, we're not the typical fans or analysts of the NBA, because I think you'll get a lot of, what were the best dunks, you know what I mean? And then kind of those types of things. But again, it's the storylines. It's like what made the NBA great in the calendar year 2017. And although we know the NBA always spans over 2 years, technically speaking, 16, 17, 17, 18, like that. Again, our focus of conversation is just kind of what happened within this calendar year. And there was a lot that happened that you're probably some of our fans and listeners are going to might have forgotten about all the way back to January. January was a big month last year.
It was.
With some crazy storylines. And I think one of the ones that that was really bizarre was kind of that whole New York Knicks situation, right?
Yep.
That's when the Phil Jackson Carmelo thing really started to really kick itself off. What happened to Derrick Rose when he went missing like mid-January? Just nobody knew where he was for 2 days or whatever the case may be. All that madness with the New York Knicks, I think, is something I'll never forget.
The New York Knicks went from a troubled basketball franchise with so many swirling questions into an NBA reality show similar to Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Like, it was just absolutely ridiculous. At first, we just thought it was just, foolish humor because of the whole thing with Phil Jackson and LeBron James and the comments that he made. And that leaked into us really paying attention to what was happening to that franchise, what was happening to that organization. And then it just manifested itself into something much larger, much bigger than it being about a senile man who is still lost in the glory days of winning 11 rings and, all of these Trump-like type tweets that he's throwing out there. This was real. And it made the New York Knicks organization kind of look like a fool for quite some time. And the person who was at the center of it, to your point, Shaw, Carmelo Anthony, because here is a guy who everybody's been saying, he needs to get out. He needs to leave. And he refused to leave. That had to be one of the more stubborn moves I've ever seen in 2017 and probably in the last 10 years of my lifetime with any sports figure.
Yeah, I agree with that, man. The funniest thing about all of that is that they're all gone. Derrick Rose isn't there. Phil Jackson is there. Neither is Carmelo. The Knicks have washed the slate completely clean. Again, if you go back from a year ago to, not today, but, roughly a year ago's time. So to me, I think that's one of the more funny storylines that happened. Something else, too, that really caught my eye in 2017 was I remember this very vividly, and some of our fans and listeners may not know some of the behind the scene things. And obviously, we're going to jump around here a little bit. But the DeMarcus Cousins trade. I remember us recording our show, getting ready, right after All-Star game was playing as we were recording. We had a, great guest, Keith Smith, on talking about that deal is probably not going to happen right now, blah, blah, blah. And then boom, Cousins gets moved to the New Orleans Pelicans for basically a bag of chips, in the middle of the night, after All-Star game, and we're scrambling. And we have to jump back on, try to re-record, try to figure this out. To me, that's one of the biggest moves, biggest moments of 2017. The fact that Cousins was traded when he was traded and how it was done overall.
Yeah, definitely. How about a few more didn't see these ones coming? Chris Paul going to the Houston Rockets. I didn't see that one coming. Did you? I mean, that would, to me, I mean, everybody knew that Chris Paul was completely disenamored with being the Los Angeles Clippers. I just didn't think it was going to be with the Houston Rockets. I really thought that if anything was going to happen, a play was going to be made for him to probably try and do something, with Cleveland or it just, to me, I felt like there was something that was there that needed to happen. And of all the teams that I didn't see it, that possibility really going forward. And maybe I thought more about it with Daryl Morey, was the fact that Chris Paul actually did want to play next to James Harden. And look at what these guys are doing so far this year. He's proving to be the most essential commodity, the most essential asset that shaped what we talk about in the 2017 offseason for the 2018 season.
I think that's a great pick too. And, it alludes into something else that I wanted to discuss was, first of all, to your point with Chris Paul, I thought the Spurs were going to be the top rated team. It just seemed like a natural fit. Also, Kyle Lowry was a free agency there too. And those are some conversations that we're having. But going back to the Clippers in general, with the move of Chris Paul, that more or less signified the end of one of three franchises that we've been seeing habitually in the playoffs. And now they're both going through some massive understructure. The Clippers are one. The Memphis Grizzlies and the Atlanta Hawks, three teams that we've been talking about for seemingly years now.
And they've been in the playoffs,
hey, you know what?
Every single
they've
year.
been in the playoffs.
Yep.
They continue to kind of do the same thing. The Clippers and Grizzlies with varying levels of success. Even Atlanta, that one year they're the number one seed in the Eastern Conference. But more or less, those three teams shifted away from what they were doing traditionally and now are in completely different phases of their organizations and their trajectory moving forward in the NBA. So the end of the era of the Clippers, Grizzlies, and Hawks is one of the big moments I have for 2017.
All right, how about Carmelo Anthony going to OKC? I've been saying that Carmelo needs to go somewhere, and he needs to go somewhere that has nothing to do about his brand and his name. He needs to just go somewhere where he can go play basketball, get his mind right about being the type of player that he's always been, and let it translate to him doing something. And of all the places he winds up going to, of all the places everyone keeps talking about, he winds up going to OKC. Now, it's starting to look a little bit better now, right? But listen, man, even I didn't think it was going to happen for him there. And to your point, man, this is why you love Sam Presti so much, because this guy's willing to do that and get a player like that. And then now you got this OK3 scenario happening right now with him, Paul George, and Russell Westbrook. I never thought I would see that aspect of him wanting to play next to or conceding to play next to an MVP kind of guy and someone who essentially is a bigger name than the Carmelo Anthony brand.
I like that one as well too. And I'm going to, jump back into something a little bit more synergetic, if you will, to think about it from this standpoint. A couple months ago, what was this, May or April, or whatever the case may be, Memphis Grizzlies, same thing. They were in the playoffs. We got take that for data, and nobody's going to rook us. And now my man Fizdale is gone, all within the same year. We're definitely in a 4 or 5 month time frame. I mean, that to me is just something that's crazy when you look back at it as well. That guy Fizdale really seemed to be taking on the mantra of the grit and grind era.
Exactly. He was that guy. Like, I could see him moving the Memphis Grizzlies, if not stabilizing them, moving them forward. And the fact that his tenure was this tenuous with him and Marc Gasol and short-lived, it boggles my mind, because we look at some other head coaches that are right now in the NBA that we should be saying that these guys should be on the hot seat, and we don't hear a peep about them. They're guys right now that I've been questioning very heavily about how long they should still be head coaches. And you know me, how I am. When I start honing in on a head coach, man, that's you know what I'm saying? That's meat. What's the shot call it? Barbecue chicken right there for me. Like, I'm ready to start snacking on some head coaches that I think are doing a disjustice to some of the talent that they've got on their roster. But to see that to happen to Fizdale, to your point, Shaw, that was like a mind blower. How about this one? The Judas hug. Kyrie Irving hugging LeBron James, them talking about, we'll be back at this again next year. And then a couple months later, it's been reported that Kyrie Irving does not want to play with LeBron James and does not want to be on this team for the upcoming season. The Judas hug. I took that one from Luke Cage, but the Judas hug, man. That's what I'm saying. And listen, I'm not saying that to diss Kyrie, and I'm not saying that to diss LeBron. But let us not forget that these are why we have these conversations about LeBron James and the effect that he has on not just players, but also an organization and team. At times, it can lift a team up. It can lift an organization up. He got Cleveland their ring. but at times it can weigh on certain players and the way that they see themselves in the NBA, because LeBron James is that type of player, and you sometimes can live with it or you can curse it, but you have to do something about it. It's the same way people felt about Kobe Bryant. And we don't always take that to exact the measure of a person's greatness and to diminish their greatness, but it does open up the reality about what NBA players do go through when they play next to and against great players.
Well, that's a good one too, and I'll go ahead and pivot off of that and take the Judas hug into the Beantown backstabbing with Danny Ainge. As a result of the Judas hug, Kyrie Irving gets traded to the Boston Celtics for Isaiah Thomas, who poured his heart out for the Boston Celtics that entire season, was a top 5 MVP candidate, played when his sister passed away, dropped 50 whatever points it was.
Oh, and I was going to bring that up as one of the best performances of 2017 was the 53-point performance by Isaiah Thomas in the finals on the day of his sister's birthday, and a few days, after learning about his sister passing away. One of the more moving sports performances we've seen. We've seen Brett Favre do it when he was with the Green Bay Packers after losing his dad against the Oakland Raiders. This was one of those type of situations where best performances ever by a player under those type of circumstances. And I tip my hat to Isaiah Thomas, because I don't think anybody expected that kind of performance from him.
Absolutely not. So again, the Judas hug to the Beantown backstabbing. Isaiah Thomas gets moved after a phenomenal, memorable year in the Boston Celtics, and one that roster and that team is never going to forget. Although they didn't reach the ultimate goal, the ultimate pinnacle, got to the Eastern Conference Finals and then got bounced. But nevertheless, I think to me that's one of those shocking moments. You hear the Celtics making all the changes that they did overall to that roster team that made it to the conference finals, and a lot of that stemmed with IT leaving. Being traded for Kyrie, then everything else that came along with that, with Crowder and Bradley, with the Gordon Hayward signing, all that stuff too. So, what Boston did to their roster, and the fact that it hasn't murdered them in terms of their overall chemistry thus far to date as we record, I think is one of those definitely crazier things that happened in 2017.
You're tuned to The Baseline. Callie, Warren Shaw, discussing the hot button topics of the NBA as we reminisce about 2017. What a year for the NBA. So many great things happening, storylines developed. Hey, what about Russell Westbrook, Shaw? I mean, 2017 was about Russ. You know what I mean? The first guy since Oscar Robertson to average a triple-double throughout the NBA season, and then really to kind of put a seal on all that MVP talk that it should go to Harden, that we should be considering Kawhi Leonard, we should be considering LeBron James. He goes out and drops, his 42nd triple-double to break the record and essentially close the deal. He's like, yo, this is mine. I own this. This is a wrap. We're not even talking about this any further. The year of the Russ. You know what I'm saying? What is that commercial that he has out there? And he's like, don't do what they do what you do. And that's exactly what Russell Westbrook did when he had to take the mantle after Kevin Durant left that team in order to go play for the Golden State Warriors. He said that this was his team, and then he said this is his NBA, and that's exactly what he proved in 2017.
Yeah, let Westbrook be Westbrook. The old mantra definitely came to pass, in 2017 overall, and then that leads into, again, the overall beef with the Brody and Durantula. Kevin Durant leaving.
Coming. Oh, you coming? I'm coming. Right? And then
all of that,
and then the bro fair, it's kind of like that little mini no mas, we're at peace, when they did the alley-oop in the NBA All-Star game, and everybody started showing love and hugs. And all right, enough of that. Let's get back to the game.
Right, we'll talk. The subsequent beef, and then I guess if you want to call it the makeup at All-Star, again, there's still animosity there. I don't care what anybody has to say. I mean, both those guys are trying to move past it, but you can tell.
Just like there was animosity with Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal. I mean, let's not act like this. Listen, man, these guys they play in a sport that's not just about the money. It's also about their livelihood, that what makes them who they are. And we'd be remiss that if somebody doesn't do something that irks them or aggravates them or makes them feel a sense of less trust with them, just don't even like them, it's going to get magnified to the umpteenth degree. So yeah, to your point, Shaw, I completely agree with you. Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook aren't good. What I will say is that they're not allowing it to affect the bottom line about what they do for the NBA and how the NBA should treat them. And it's hard to do because, so maybe some 20-something years ago in the era that we grew up in with the Larry Birds and the Magic Johnsons, and listen, even Isaiah Thomas, I mean, look how long it took before Isaiah Thomas and Magic Johnson decided to air out their grievances. They have to do it at the behest of NBA TV because, you know what I'm saying, they need a bump on that players only thing so that these guys could actually have that talk to talk. I mean, they may never do that, if you're Kevin Durant or Russell Westbrook, or they may do it and just have figured out a way to not get us in on it. Either way, as long as it doesn't look ugly on the basketball court, I'm completely fine with it.
Yeah, I mean, people always talk about it. It's going to be a great 30 for 31 day. The team that never was, almost kind of like, Penny and Shaq when those guys broke up and, did the 30 for 30 on those guys and kind of the problems that they had internally or whatever the case may be. Got a couple more men, I think that are definitely of worthy note, if you will. Remember way back this happened last January when Rajon Rondo, Jimmy Butler, and Dwayne Wade had their little feud in Chicago, and Rondo makes a long IG post about my vets this and my vets that, and Wade and Butler seem to be teaming up and playing buddy ball. And that whole situation in Chicago that just seemed to be spiraling out of freaking control. Then they somehow scrape their way to get back together, get into the playoffs, and to a lot of people's beliefs, think if Rondo stays healthy, they could have beat the Boston Celtics. The year that was for the Chicago Bulls is really insane, especially when you take it from that IG post from Rondo to get into the playoffs to all three of those guys now being gone and to kind of what's going on with that team right now.
Oh, man. Well, how about this? How about Rajon Rondo putting up some serious question marks? Like, if this ain't the year of Russell Westbrook, you can make the argument this could be the year of Rajon Rondo, because Rajon Rondo opened up a lot of debate about, had he been healthy, the Chicago Bulls, would they have knocked off the Boston Celtics? Would we have taken the Boston Celtics seriously as the number one seed in the Eastern Conference in the playoffs last year? And then he is now responsible, and we'll bring him up in our Coast to Coast real quick, where we kind of embellish a little bit more on his 25 assist performance. He could be the reason why the New Orleans Pelicans might be considered a decent enough basketball team to be formidable to be in the playoffs, right? And so to me, it's just amazing because a year ago we were talking about how Rajon Rondo was a cancer to a basketball team. Rajon Rondo does not know how to lead men. Rajon Rondo was just a tag along with the 2008 Boston Celtics that won their championship. And here we are talking about how Rajon Rondo, in my opinion, showed more leadership and have more of a mindset of redeeming himself coming over to that Chicago Bulls team than whatever I saw from Jimmy Butler, from whatever I saw from Dwayne Wade. It exposed a lot of things that we didn't see have happen. And it's funny how you trailed it all the way back to January of 2017 to that IG post, Shaw, because it's speaking volumes about how Rajon Rondo is helping the basketball teams that he does play for when he's given the opportunity. It'll be interesting because I've got a very interesting New Year's resolution for that we'll talk about in a few moments with regards to Rajon Rondo and the New Orleans Pelicans.
I like it, and last two that I have, I guess we can move on forward here is, Durant's big three, over LeBron in the NBA Finals. I think that was a career-defining shot for him. Yes, he'd won MVP before and all those other things, but hadn't performed to that level on that stage, and to do it over a guy that he's idolized, over the course of his career, that three was massive for his confidence, and then the inevitable march to victory that the Golden State Warriors are on as well too. But something else from last year's playoffs that I want to touch on was Manu Ginobili blocking James Harden in Game 5 of the NBA semifinals.
That was big.
That was a huge moment. Not just because Manu was as old as he is and the veteran guy, whatever the case may be, but it almost single-handedly signified the need for Harden to get another star. I think in that moment alone, he goes out there in Game 6 and puts up another dud. It just doesn't seem completely interested, loses his whole cool in that next game. They get romped by the Spurs. And that changed a whole trajectory for what the Rockets, I think, were going to do. I think if they make it to the conference finals, I don't know that Chris Paul comes there. I mean, there's obviously still a very good possibility, but you just never know when those things happen. And then think about this as well, too. Just chain of effect. This is me going wild, almost conspiracy theories here, right?
Uh-oh.
If the Rockets don't, in essence, fold up, right, and the Spurs end up going to the conference finals, we probably don't have the Zaza Pachulia rule change because the Spurs maybe they don't get to the conference finals. But what happens if Zaza never does that to Kawhi? Do the Spurs, who were winning game one very handily before Kawhi got hurt, do they somehow upset Golden State? And then that makes it a Spurs-Cavs NBA Finals. All these things kind of, percolating in my mind, trying to figure out, but all as a result of Manu blocking James Harden and effectively ending the Rockets season.
Oh, man, that's some good stuff. And it's funny. I love how you tailored that storyline in there. So, real quick, let me go ahead and throw out some storylines that I think should not be remiss that, happened in 2017. Devin Booker's 70-point performance against the Boston Celtics, huh? We can't forget that. Youngest kid to basically drop 70, and he's only a handful of people to be able to do that. The Warriors winning the second championship over the last 3 seasons and dispatching the Cleveland Cavaliers. But what this also did, it also awoken the Cavaliers in making sure that if they're going to do something, they better do it fast. Because if we recall, trace that all the way back into the early part of the year when LeBron James was talking about how he needs some help, and he publicly put that out there. Now we see that after the tenure of David Griffin, he moves on. Kobe Altman comes in, and then they start making this big move. And then now they've got this really deep basketball team, which hopes and prayers, if Isaiah Thomas comes and he's healthy, will this come to fruition that we see the rematch between the Cavaliers and the Warriors once again? Oh, and the rivalry between LeBron James and Kevin Durant has finally spawned, something that we were hoping to have seen back in 2012 when he was with the Miami Heat. So there are so many crazy storylines that have kind of happened, even from just a couple of the matchups that we've seen. Celtics and the Wizards. Remember the Wizards talking mad smack, dressed in all black. Boston Celtics now re-up, ready to take. It's just great, man. It's great things that have happened. And then, how can we forget 2017, the beginning of the LeVar Ball, Lonzo Ball movement in the NBA. so much craziness, baby. This is all in 2017, dude. All in 2017, man. So I'm excited about 2018, man, because now as long as we got LeVar Ball yakking, there ain't no telling what might transpire after that. Oh, yeah. And then the LA takeover. Magic Johnson, Jeannie Buss, taking over the Los Angeles Lakers and positioning themselves so that they were going to start the hype about bringing Lonzo Ball to start the new era of the Showtime. So crazy, man.
Yeah.
So crazy.
Massive, too. And then just kind of in closing, too, the NBA in general, their stand against Donald Trump. You know what I mean? With LeBron James, Stephen Curry, all those guys coming out and making their statements, Bradley Beal, all that stuff happened around Media Day this year. Just the NBA solidarity and trying to really raise awareness of social responsibility and to kind of the errors that they believe our president, and that I believe as well too, the president is making in a lot of ways too. So the NBA continues to be, as I always say, the gift that keeps on giving throughout the year, 365, 24/7. And again, I think it was a great year, 2017, and I as well cannot wait to see what 2018 has to offer.
Oh, definitely. All right. So coming up on the flip side, we get into our 2018 New Year's resolutions for the NBA for both the East and Western conferences. You don't want to miss this here on the Baseline NBA podcast. We're back. Hallie Warren-Shaw of the Baseline NBA podcast as we continue on. Now we are going to talk about our 2018 NBA New Year's resolutions. And, before we do that, Shaw, I believe that we need to have New Year's resolutions for the Baseline NBA podcast. So I do. Number one, 2018, we've been doing our thing for quite some time, right? I think in many ways people see us as a steadfast ship. We dock port to port. You know what I'm saying? We're reliable, always there. You know what I'm saying? Always on time, like Ja Rule. You know what I mean? Like we do our thing. But I think 2018, I'm not afraid for us to take a little bit of risk, man. You know what I mean? Now, I'm not saying we got to, be climbing Mount Everest in our shorts or nothing, but I do think that maybe we can add a little more oomph that we haven't already have been adding to the show as me. So 2018, I promise, because I've been hearing the rumors, I've been hearing it, man. People have been asking for more conspiracy theories, bro. I'm going to have to hit them up with that. I got to give the people what they want, like my man Jalen Rose says. Got to give the people what they want. So there may be a few more conspiracy theories out there. That means I might have to get outside of myself a little bit, Shaw. You might have to pull me back in a few times, but it has to be done.
I ain't mad at that, bro. I really am not. I'll be here to kind of see how far you go before you jump off the deep end. Make sure we don't lose any listeners or lose any fans. But you always come up with some great stuff. Some things that not too many of us may be thinking about, at least not in the same way that you're analyzing it, man. And I think that's a great idea.
I tend to do that on the regular anyway, but still.
Well, that's just your personality.
That's just who I am.
Whatever. That's a long time thing, 30 plus years in, dude. So, but nevertheless, I think for us as well too, we do want to push the envelope, and and we're always looking for new ideas and looking for our listeners and fans to engage with us as well too. I think we'll probably do a little bit more, or a little bit more unique social media stuff as well too, trying to just get the conversation going out there, man, and just being out on all those sites and everywhere like that too, so we can have some more overall engagement. And we want to bring our listeners, we want to bring their opinions into our shows and do some more surveys and polls and all that stuff too, because I think that's what makes the show fun, keeps it fresh, and keeps you guys wanting to listen on a regular basis. So make sure that you give us those ideas, and as always, hit us up on iTunes, give us those ratings so we can climb those charts, and we can remain one of your top NBA podcasts.
Oh yeah, and before we get into this, I want to make sure that I send my apologies to the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Los Angeles Lakers. When I did the show last week and I was asking our listeners, which game or which matchup are you looking forward to? While I wasn't completely enamored with that matchup, I did not want my depiction of how I was polling to also be seemed biased about my disenfranchised, feelings towards that game. Twitter's poll thing didn't give me the option to add the Lakers and the Timberwolves for y'all to choose. So, what I'm saying? My bad on that. But, Twitter, man, 2018 resolutions, man, step up your polling software applications, man. How you going to have people, give options and then you don't give us enough options to give out there for our people to make their choices? That just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So, my bad to the Timberwolves and the Lakers. Apologies, but we'll step it up 2018. We'll find better software if Twitter can't step their game up. Just letting y'all know. Sorry. So
make it happen, B. Make it happen.
All right, listen, let's get right into the Eastern Conference New Year's resolutions. Okay. First things first, my 2018 New Year's resolutions for the East. Danny Ainge, don't rest on your laurels, okay? He went ham in the offseason getting Kyrie Irving, Gordon Hayward. And while Gordon Hayward went down with injury, this Boston Celtics team has shown that they definitely are still among the best in the Eastern Conference. You can even make the arguments a top 5 team in the NBA. With that being said, clearly this team still needs some more things to be a team that we're going to have this conversation about knocking off a Cleveland Cavaliers team if they ever get into the finals. A team that can, make sure that they secure themselves past any of the other teams that are in the Eastern Conference. If you're Danny Ainge, you pulled this stunt last year where you did nothing during the trade deadline. You look at this roster, and if there's an opportunity to make a play to improve this team, I understand he tends to be Ebenezer Scrooge when it comes to his trade picks and stuff. But if this is a legitimate basketball team that we want to start talking about having possibilities to knock off the Cleveland Cavaliers with consistency, they got to do something come the trade deadline. Danny Ainge, you know what I'm saying? Put on the big boy pants, trade deadline, bro. Do something. Be bold, not just in the offseason.
Wow, that's tough. And Boston is in a situation where they played a ton of games before the new year. Ironically, I think they played the most games in the NBA. They're going to almost be done really more than half their season before January, which is crazy because they have that big London trip coming up. And this is a team that is a little bit tired, at this point. They still have the disabled player exemption that they can use from the Gordon Hayward injury, so they can maybe try to sign somebody, bring in somebody last year of their deal, or try to trade for something, or like you said, wait till buyout season and do something like that. I suspect though that Ainge is probably much going to ride this out, thinking that this team is not necessarily championship ready anyway, and then try to re-up again this summer and see what shakes loose in free agency. Again, you continue to hear Anthony Davis rumors and the Boston Celtics that they keep calling Dell Demps like, bruh, what's up? Can we get in there? But the New Orleans Pelicans have no reason to give up on what they're doing right now with Cousins and Davis. So I suspect you'll see Ainge maybe hold on to some of these things and wait till the offseason to see if the Pelicans then try to redirect their focus if Cousins decides to walk in free agency, and then that will leave Anthony Davis there by himself yet again. So that's that. But I definitely like that overall thing with Boston. I'm going to stick in the Atlantic Division myself as well, too. And for the Brooklyn Nets, here we go. My favorite saying, shit or get off the pot. I'm tired of watching Jahlil Okafor toil away on this roster, on this bench. You make the trade, and now all of a sudden, he's not ready. He's not healthy, but Nick Stauskas is ready. Here's my problem with all of that. They say Okafor is out of shape. He hasn't been playing. Well, Stauskas was on the same Philadelphia team and wasn't playing as well either. So I know Stauskas got maybe some spot minutes, 2 or 3 minutes here and there, but don't give me, okay, those minutes got him in shape and Okafor's not. Okafor's been on bikes, been doing the same thing forever. But whatever has happened here in Brooklyn,
you need to put him on Peloton. That's what he needs. He needs some.
But it's wild though.
It
doesn't make sense. It seems to me that Coach Atkinson, he's very upset with the way that the trade was done. Maybe it upset the team's chemistry, moving Trevor Booker, who was a nice player for them and a nice veteran presence within that locker room. Now you bring in Okafor, who's all upside, and we've praised this move more or less, saying that, hey, look what they did, and they're getting Russell and Okafor, 2 and 3 picks in that draft a couple of seasons ago, but yet Okafor continues to sit as they just feel like he's not ready, and to me, that's something that's on them. They've got to figure that out.
Not that I'm trying to formulate a conspiracy theory here, Shaw, but you brought up an interesting point with reference to Kenny Atkinson. Let's remember he's under that coaching tree of Spoelstra, Riley, Fizdale. They are set in their ways of how they do things, right? What if this move itself could also be used as a measuring stick about whether or not Kenny Atkinson should be the man long term? Like if he does not coach this basketball team in a way that allows him the freedom to be the kind of coach that he wants to be, especially if you make a move of getting a guy like Jahlil Okafor and say that he believes in him and the management doesn't, could Atkinson find himself on his way out the door because he's not going to just quote unquote conform to the ways of an organization that still seems to be searching itself to be definitive about what they want to be in the thrust of the NBA?
No, I don't think there's any chance with that. I think Atkinson has kind of almost the same immunity that Brett Brown once had, in Philadelphia. There's a situation here where they don't have assets. All they're trying to do is upset the market and try to drive the price up on other teams out there, so that when players do become available, that they can make the move. And you see the moves that they have been making in terms of getting talent that they can hopefully evaluate and then eventually develop. But again, getting Okafor now for roughly 3-4 weeks and not doing anything with him it's absurd. It doesn't make any sense to me. So for me, that's the New Year's resolution the Brooklyn Nets need to figure out. Listen, are you going to play Okafor? Other than that, then you need to free Ja again and set him free.
All right, how about this one? I'm going to take this one out to Milwaukee, man. Jason Kidd. New Year's resolutions, Jason. I need you to get the Milwaukee Bucks to play like they need to slap the taste out of somebody's mouth and start earning a little bit of respect in the East. Ever since the Milwaukee Bucks has made the playoffs, which was what, 3 years ago? About 3 years ago, the first round against Derrick Rose and Jimmy Butler and those boys, and they actually pushed those guys, to a game 5 in the playoffs, or is it 7? 7. I think they pushed them to 7, 6 or 7. I can't remember which one it was. I feel like this is a team that should really start garnering the respect. I understand that they've been injury prone, but I still feel like they're lacking something, man. They're lacking something aggressive, intense, something that I thought that I was going to see from that basketball team that should have kind of blossomed at this point. And I'm just waiting to see when JC Kidd is going to start saying to these guys, you guys are long, you guys are young, you guys should be brash, should be bold. You should guys go out there. You just beat the Cleveland Cavaliers in this regular season. You should go out there and you should start demanding the respect that you guys should be garnering or earning. Still not seeing that yet. I think if they start getting that, Shaw, we can start talking about the Milwaukee Bucks team as a serious basketball team when they make the playoffs and possibly knocking a team off like that. because there's only one person I feel like thinks that he has that in him, and that's Giannis Antetokounmpo. I just don't see that being filtered to the rest of those guys. I want to start seeing that.
A lot of what's going on with Milwaukee, I think some analysts out there, I've heard and listened to a lot of different things out there about Kidd and his rotations. A lot of people don't think he is the right coach for this team and this roster. Although there has been some moments recently, with Giannis blowing up, not with Kidd, but the other assistant coach. Then they acquired Sean Kilpatrick a little while ago. Then Kidd comes out with some ridiculous statement. Oh, well, his name didn't get pulled out of the hat today to be in the rotation. Things of that nature. Like it's very, very strange, I think, with Kidd and what's going on there. And again, he's in some sort of cahoots with ownership, and they like him. So I don't think his job or anything is in jeopardy. But Milwaukee, you're right. They seem to be being held back a little bit, and we don't really know what the reason is for that. But I think a lot of it is because of the rotations, and some of him really only relying on the starter sometimes, and then all of a sudden he'll do a Popovich and pull everybody after 2 minutes. So the coaching isn't consistent there with Milwaukee, but they're just so good. They are going to be a nightmare for anybody they match up with in the NBA playoffs. Again, yes, we know that they're inconsistent, but their length is I can't imagine any team like, yeah, I want to play them. No team is going to want that problem, despite some of the issues that are going on there in Milwaukee.
The Milwaukee Bucks, they sit, fifth in the Eastern Conference, Shaw, to your point. But I just feel like the talent that they do have, especially when most of those guys are healthy, but they still have some prime players there, that they should really be a much better than 3 games above 500 basketball team, even for this season. I just really can't explain. I just don't see that angst in them. And that, to me, at times, I think becomes troublesome, because it makes you wonder if whether or not that intensity only happens against a certain matchup, against a certain period. I guess unless their backs are against the wall. And I can't see why that should be the case. It's not like they're a veteran basketball team like the Cleveland Cavaliers, a bunch of young kids that want to earn their keep in a small market in Milwaukee, and people are still stuck on Green Bay Packers. You know what I'm saying? Like, they want to start talking about Milwaukee Bucks basketball like they used to talk about Lou Alcindor when he was, the man there. They got that in a Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Yeah, well, watch a video by our guy at B-Ball Breakdown, Coach Nick. He talks about the Bucks rotation. Well, actually, he's not talking about the Bucks. He's talking about poor defenses in the NBA, and the Bucks are 23rd in defensive rating. They're still doing some old things that don't really work in today's NBA anymore because of the pace and space, where they like to trap high pick and roll. They try to ice guys off the pick and roll. And, guys are smarter than that. And they're using escape dribbles to swing the ball weak side and hit that corner man for 3. And with 3-point shooting being the way it is, they're getting killed. Milwaukee's getting killed in that, despite all the length that they have. And you think, okay, they're always going to be able to recover because of that length. So a lot of that, again, that's coaching and that scheme for Milwaukee that they've got to figure out. But yeah, they're still right in the thick of it in the Eastern Conference despite some issues. So my resolution, I'm going to jump over into the Southeast, and it's going to be your boys, your team that you love to claim, the Washington Wizards. Listen, man. Finally.
I was just looking at the one I had for that one, man. Please, by all means.
But find a way to be consistent. Listen, they're better off than they were last year at this time. No doubt about that. But this playing down to the level of competition every single game. Just heard a quote from John Wall earlier this week saying that when they see some of those less than 500 teams on the schedule, they think it's time for them to go out there and pad their stats. They lose all concept of team chemistry and team basketball, and they kind of going out there going for dolo. And that has yielded some very, very poor results, including, I guess, 2 losses to the Brooklyn Nets, where one of them they got absolutely smashed, I think like 25, 30 points to Brooklyn. So for me, that Wizards team, who claims to be one of the best in the Eastern Conference, came out during media to say the Cavaliers didn't want to see them and that they're the best backcourt in the NBA with Wall and Beal. All those things, bravado, wearing all black last year, all of that. You can't be a team that's just, quivering above 500 a little bit, and you need to be one of the elite teams in the Eastern Conference if you're going to make all that noise.
Oh, listen, man, you just stole my thunder, bro. And they're the Wizards, by the way. But yeah, you just stole my thunder. It's my New Year's resolution was Scott Brooks. I want you to sit down with John Wall and tell him and the rest of the team need to dress up in all black every single night. If that's what's going to motivate them to be acting like they are an Eastern Conference semifinalists like they were last season. Because they're too good to be hovering around 6th seed in the NBA East. There's just no excuse for that whatsoever. So I completely agree with you, Shaw. That was one of my bigger New Year's resolutions. I have one final one here for the East before we switch over to the West. I just need to show more love, man. I've noticed that I breed a little bit too much pessimism sometimes. And so I just need to show a little bit more love to the Chicago Bulls, the New York Knicks, the Brooklyn Nets. I tend to come down on them a lot. I will try to do a better job of not casting incredulous thoughts on them because they are not the worst teams in the Eastern Conference right now. How about that, right? I mean, if you look at it, to your point, Shaw, you're tired of that, copper squat Brooklyn Nets style of organization handling. They are not the worst team in the East. The Chicago Bulls are not the worst team in the East. So it means that they've got some talented players. It's what they do with the talent and what they do with this team moving forward that I tend to worry about. But I'm going to start showing some love to these guys. We start 2018 giving these three teams their props because they are much better than what we saw from them last year.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree. I think in the case of Chicago, it's a recent thing. They were horrendous to begin the year, absolutely horrendous. But Mirotic is back. Chris Dunn is playing at a level right now that everyone was hoping he'd eventually get to. And they still have Levine to come back sometime in January as well. So this is a roster and a team that's definitely making moves. But I think of the tanking teams, the teams that we thought weren't going to be good, the Bulls have definitely, and the Nets are starting to really equip themselves pretty well. But remember, we also picked the Pacers to be one of the worst teams, and they're right in the thick of the Eastern Conference playoffs, above 500. So, go ahead, go figure with that with the Eastern Conference, man. It's been a wild ride out there in the East, man.
Most definitely. You're tuned to The Baseline. Callie, Warren, Shaw discussing the hot button topics of the NBA, our 2018 New Year's resolutions of the Eastern Conference. Now let's switch our attention to the Western Conference. Maybe the Western Conference is just so damn good, Shaw, that there's not too many resolutions that we can come up with these. I don't have too many. One I do have, though, if it's in the Western Conference, is for the Phoenix Suns, move me and make sure it makes sense. Like Brandon Knight, Tyson Chandler. These guys need to be on other basketball teams, man. I don't need to be seeing them play with the Phoenix Suns, right? Like, these guys could actually offer something to basketball teams that need their talent and their skill set. And if I'm the Phoenix Suns, start doing some good for a change. We just passed Christmas. Spread some good cheer, man. Move Brandon Knight and Tyson Chandler to basketball teams in which they can contribute, and we cannot make these guys look like they're 45, 50-year-old, old relics of an old NBA. These guys have got talent. They've got skills, man. Put them on some good teams.
You're tough with that, man. I mean, Brandon Knight's out for the year, so they're not going to be able to get rid of that contract regardless of anything. No one's taking that on right now, especially with him hurt. So, but I mean, I guess right.
But you get what I mean, though, right? Yeah. Like, he wasn't injured when they should have moved him last year. Like, what were you doing with him last year? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just saying, like, move these guys along,
that crazy logjam. Yeah, and then they have, they have to move Greg Monroe or Tyson Chandler as well too. So Phoenix. Definitely just, I think for me, piggybacking off of that is just, figuring out your direction and just being more focused in 2018.
I'm going to buy them a Garmin for Christmas if they don't get this figured out in 2018. I'm going to get them a Garmin GPS.
That might work. Ryan McDonough, definitely could use that because this roster it's a strange build. And the pieces don't necessarily fit. And along those same lines, I'm going to stay in the Pacific Division and, almost the same battle cry as you here, my dude. Listen, it's time. We've seen enough. We know what it is. Julius Randle is not going to be a part of the LA Lakers franchise moving forward. Jordan Clarkson is not going to be a part of the Lakers franchise moving forward. Get those guys the hell on. Put them in situations where, like you said, can be productive and can help another team or roster out there. I heard there was a brief rumor over the last week or so that the Lakers were looking at a potential swap of Randle for Nerlens Noel, with Noel having the expiring deal as well too. Can help them up front as a young big athletic guy, but then Noel ended up injuring his thumbs. Is too busy getting pizza on the sideline, so that's kind of squashed for right now. But in the meantime, the Lakers need to be trying to find a move that gets Julius Randle and Jordan Clarkson out of there. Woj also had a report that Luol Deng, they've given up trying to move him, so they're maybe looking at some sort of buyout option for him before the trade deadline, the March 1st deadline takes place. So this Lakers franchise, if you're going to start preparing for next year, the massive free agency, then do that now. I'm not going anywhere at 11-22 as we record this podcast. So get rid of some of those young guys and let them find some homes elsewhere.
All right, listen, how about this, man? Alvin, Mr. Gentry, I'm talking to you, man. I need you to work with this roster, man. This could be it for him. This could be it. All right. Rajon Rondo, 31 years old, gives you 25 assists the other night. If there's anybody that seems to get the ball to his playmakers the way that he needs to, it's probably through him. Won't be through Jrue Holiday. But man, you got to make this work, man. You got to make this work. We can't be seeing this all basically go down in flames. And everyone's going to be looking at how Alvin Gentry coaches this basketball team moving forward, because if they don't make the playoffs, we're going to be seeing, again, another scenario situation questioning the Pelicans. What do they want? What do they do? Because it was clear that people thought that things were on the up and up when they had Monty Williams as the head coach, and you look what they did to him. So as far as I'm concerned, Gentry, dude, work with Rondo. Yeah, he may be a knucklehead, but clearly he knows what to do with those guys that you couldn't do when you didn't have them on the roster last year.
I like that. I like how you began that. I felt like I was listening to the gas face. You know what I mean? Alvin Gentry gets the gas face.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I was going to get Pete Minister nice on him, bro. You don't know, man. Let me tell you something. Like, yo, for real.
But it's my turn. Tom Thibodeau. You get the gas face. Listen, son, please ease off the gas. Play your bench some. Let some of these guys rest. You're going to burn out your great roster. Made some nice moves to get people in place to have a team that is right there in the middle of a pack in the Western Conference, and is going to be very formidable. Going to be a tough out no matter who they play. But they will not be able to win games in the playoffs if you continue to burn these guys out. You know, I think there was some ridiculous stat that their starting five is in the top 40 or something like that in minutes played, with Towns and Butler in the top 12 or something crazy. You know what I mean? I'm throwing out stats, but it's something around those. I'm not being very precise, and I apologize for that. But either way, they're playing way too many minutes. And you have guys like Tyus Jones. When he goes out there, he is effective. I know he's not a great shooter or anything like that, but he's good on the defensive end, gets a lot of steals. He's pesky. You can play Gorgie Jang out there. You know, Bjelica's back. Jamal Crawford was crying for minutes earlier in the year. He's like, hey, why am I only getting 17 minutes a night? Listen, play those guys, bolster up your bench so that they can be ready for playoff time in case of any injuries, or just in case you need a lift one way or the other. So Tom Thibodeau, ease up the gas with the Timberwolves, bro.
Oh, man, I like that one, Shaw. I got two more here for you. The first one is an ode to Daryl Morey. Daryl Morey, NBA Analytics GM God. He's an originator. Anyone else who follows in his footsteps, they are imitations. They can't do what he does. Does that sound good? Sounds poetic? I mean, because if you really think about it, Hinkie tried, and you saw how ugly that was out there in Philadelphia. Daryl Morey says, let me show you how it's done, son. Eric Gordon, right? Trade for Chris Paul, hires Mike D'Antoni, gets rid of Dwight Howard. Daryl Morey is still there, but he's there for a reason. And the Houston Rockets are going to be a successful basketball franchise if this man continues to keep doing what he's been doing. And if you are in the Southwest Division, Dallas Mavericks, Memphis Grizzlies, take notes, my friends. Take odious notes.
I like it. You know, I like it. I'm going to move back over real quick to the Northwest, and it's the Portland Trailblazers. Almost like the Wizards. I think a lot of compare them to the Wizards. A lot of people do because of the backcourt situation as well, too, and just, you know, kind of how they play. But they definitely need to find a third guy. And obviously we're looking at Nurkic here to be that and be that consistently. I think McCollum has had a little bit of a down year as well, too. So I think for the Portland Trailblazers and Terry Stotts, just finding a way to get all of those guys, get them going, you know, get them some easier shots, and find a way to be consistent on a regular basis. Portland remarkably has improved their defense somewhat. I think from a season ago, they're third in defensive rating. Third, the Portland Trailblazers. And you don't look at that team and feel like, okay, you know, they're a bunch of stoppers, but somehow their offense has gone awry as a result of that, and they weren't able to remain consistent on that side of the basketball. So for me, Portland finding some consistency on the offensive end, get McCollum and Nurkic going to match Damian Lillard, and they too will be a rough out in the Western Conference if things go right for them in 2018.
Finally, I want to make sure that as part of my New Year's resolutions for 2018, that I properly acknowledge people who have made significant strides to bettering the overall quality of our NBA, preferably in the 2017 draft. Chris Paul, I'd like to thank you personally for giving us Donovan Mitchell. And I think the Utah fans, the Utahnians, should, rather than celebrating Orrin Hatch tongue-in-cheek, should be celebrating Chris Paul as well too. Not because he does State Farm commercials, but because he was influential in Donovan Mitchell staying in this year's NBA draft and giving you your point guard of the future. Thank you very much.
Big shouts to CP3 for keeping DM in the league. I mean, getting him in the league, if you will, and Utah, for doing what they're doing with him as a result of the trade, ironically, with Denver. So I think, the Jazz are not quite where they want to be. They started off the season pretty hot. Now they've cooled down a little bit. Gobert's injury has been, very, very debilitating to them overall. And I think that's how I'll close, for the New Year's resolution is overall, NBA, get together, man. Stop the injuries. Find a way. We want to see these guys out there, and I know there's nothing magically that can be done about that. But I just hoping that somehow, some way, we can see less injuries in 2018 overall, because we want to see the best product we possibly can out there each and every day.
Most definitely. What a way to start off the 2018 by being resolute and bringing some sense of finality to a great future that the NBA beholds. Cali, Warren Shaw. This is the Baseline NBA Podcast, and you've been checking us out here with the breakdown.
Coast to coast.
Time now to go coast to coast discussing the news in the association. You ready to rock and roll, Mr. Shaw?
Absolutely, man. Let's ride.
All right, first one for 2018, man. Gerald Green agrees to a non-guaranteed deal with the Houston Rockets. Is he going to come in and really and instantaneously help this team, Shaw?
The Rockets love to kill it with fire. More firepower, more guys got out there to shoot the three. He's a nice slasher as well, too. Going to fill, I guess, the Corey Brewer role coming off the bench. Won't see a lot of time, but definitely a nice guy to have in the locker room, and they can definitely hit the shot when Harden and Chris Paul are penetrating.
Dude, man, he's only 31 years old. He averaged 11 minutes last year, 5.6 points per game on 40% field goal shooting. He's got
I feel like that guy's I feel like he's 37.
Yeah, man.
He's
It's
been in the
just
league forever.
Yeah, it's just I don't know, man. It's just grows old, man. I don't get it. Maybe it's the last name. Maybe it's just too many greens. They're trying to get all the greens out. Reggie Jackson for the Detroit Pistons. He'll be out 6 to 8 weeks with a grade 3 ankle sprain. Big blow for Piston land.
Yeah, the Pistons have been inconsistent. Very, very good, then very bad, now very good again, and now Jackson goes out. Smith in the one game since the injury that we're doing on our recording of our show played very well in that interim time. A lot of people think it should be starting anyway, but Reggie played pretty well to begin the year, so hopefully he's back soon. But we'll be interested to see how the Pistons go without Reg for the next couple weeks here, man. 2 months, wow, that's a long time.
Long time. Minnesota Timberwolves, while they are on an uptick, they're going to have to suffer without their man Jeff Teague at the point guard position out 2 to 4 weeks with a sprained MCL.
Yeah, man, it was a rough ankle injury. Nobody has strong ankles. Nobody in the world. It's just one of those things. And Tyus Jones now gets an opportunity. So it goes back to New Year's resolution a little bit, I guess. You're going to have to play their backup point guard and let him get some minutes and get some burn out there and develop him, before it comes to playoff time, what they haven't seen. So it should be really good for Tyus in their interim time. Probably see a lot of point Jimmy Butler as well, but wishing Jeff Teague a speedy recovery.
All right, out in San Antonio, Rudy Gay. It's been reported he's going to be gone for 2 weeks, at least 2 weeks, with a right heel injury, man. Just cannot keep healthy with Rudy Gay, bro.
Yeah, and he was playing pretty well, in a limited role for San Antonio. They're still working Kawhi back into the fold, and I don't think that's going to press Pop in any way, shape, or form to give Kawhi more minutes now that Gay was not able to suck up some of those minutes, a small forward and power forward. Kyle Anderson will probably eat up those minutes in the meantime, but definitely ends Rudy Gay's any hope or any chance he had, and I don't know if he had much of anyone anyway, of trying to be a sixth man of the year. But nevertheless, like I said, it's unfortunate for him, but the Spurs keep on rolling, and they'll be ready when he gets back.
All right. Out in the Pacific Division, 2 key players are heading back on the basketball court sooner than expected. Steph Curry for the Warriors, Blake Griffin for the Clippers. Hey, man, I'm sure people out there on the West Coast are feeling good that some superstars are going to come back up to light up the screen.
Clippers for sure. Warriors were doing just fine without Curry. They feel no effects without him, but yeah, definitely great to have him back out there in the league itself. Just to kind of see him out there splashing down and then doing the great things he does. I think more impactfully is Blake coming back to the Clippers, see if they can get back into this race in the Western Conference to maybe scratch for a playoff seed, and maybe avert a potential DeAndre Jordan trade if that Blake is coming back early. So we'll see. I think that's going to be the more impactful of the two things, two players coming back though.
All right, the Clippers were 6 and 8 during a period of Blake Griffin being gone. Warriors 9 and 1. I mean, what more can be said, man? It's just like definitely like, listen, hey Steph, man, just chill out. Take some time off.
No rush.
No rush. What an awesome, awesome show, and an awesome way for us to end 2017 and start 2018 the way that it ought to be, man. Good basketball talk as always. My brother, man, we've done it again for another year. We still have more of the season left to go, but man, doing this with you, man, wouldn't ask a better partner to be running these basketball streets with, brother.
I agree, and I salute you as always. You make it fun, you make it worthwhile, and our fans and listeners really are the engine that kind of helps us continue to go and make sure that we stay on our grizzly each and every year that we've been doing this podcast. I think we have an anniversary ourselves coming up in January from when we started X amount of years ago. But salute to you, man, and Happy New Year to all the fans and listeners of NBA Baseline. It's been a great ride. Hope to bring you a lot more amazing and fun content over the coming years. But definitely 2018 is right around the corner. So stay tuned as always, bro.
Oh, so definitely. So for all of our fans and listeners, we hope that you've enjoyed yourselves. We hope you had a great 2017, and we wish you the best for 2018. As always, keep us on lock. Keep your earlobes ready. We're going to definitely hit you with all the great content, all the analytics, all the numbers, all the insight, as we always do. We enjoy doing it, and we love doing it for you. So for the Baseline, Cali, Warren Shaw, we appreciate you guys. You know we do. And we'll catch up with you next time.